Feeling like everything you know right now is obsolete? Join us as we explore the game over, game on phenomenon and how to thrive in a rapidly changing business world. In this episode of Business Unfiltered, we're discussing game over, game on, a concept about embracing change and new opportunities. We'll define what it means when we say the old ways are over, how AI is reshaping the landscape, and how to shift to a game on mentality. Tune in to hear our perspectives on transitioning to new tools, results oriented thinking, and preparing for a future of abundance.
Welcome back to the Profit School Podcast. This is the Business Unfiltered edition, a conversation between Mr. Jeff Sauer and myself, Chris Mercer. Today we are talking game over, game on. So, Jeff, as is our tradition, what are you thinking about when I bring up this topic of game over, game on? What comes to mind?
I call it the Mercer special. So, Mercer was giving a presentation to a group of 7 and 8 figure entrepreneurs about how the world we lived in the past was changing. It's game over for our old way of doing things, and it's game on for the new way of doing things. That wasn't even the title of the presentation. You just said that off the cuff. Like that was just like something you said. You're like, hey, it's game over for you, but it's also game on, folks. And then in the crowd, people were like, somebody registered that domain name and was like, this is like the rallying cry. They're like, I've never heard somebody so eloquently phrase this to say it is what it is. It's like it's over what we were doing, but it's the new economy is coming in, and it's just like a rallying cry. And so I had to introduce it that way. It's hard to define it without even going to that part. But this is something that you said that came out of your mouth. You probably didn't even realize it, but ultimately it was sort of the elephant in the room that you addressed. You figured out a way to address the elephant in the room, and that is, yep, things are changing, things are moving, things are going fast, but this is the biggest opportunity in our lifetime in order to embrace this and to take advantage of it and to shift to doing it. And so that's it. So that was it. Game over, game on. That's the genesis. Now, it's a little bit harder to define what we mean by game over, game on, but I don't know if we need to, right? That's the introduction. How would you define it, or do you even need to define it, Mercer? Like, what was going through your head when you had that instance of brilliance?
Nice segue. Thank you for that. For me, it was, so when I was going through this AI, again, we had this unlock with AI in terms of how we use it, which we can definitely talk about on this podcast today, on this episode. But the idea was when I figured out how to unlock it, I had this like horror moment of realizing everything I knew was not useful anymore. All the old ways of everything I've done to get to this point is just to get me to this next level. And in order for me to get to this next level, I have to stop playing the current level. I have to, in other words, have to admit it's game over. This game's over, and it's now game on, new level. Right. And that's where it was like my game over, game on moment. That's where that came from, was with AI. And specifically, it was because I'm sitting there using, it was an AI studio, which you can interact with. It's got all these different modalities. You can see screens, you can see your camera, you can talk to it. It knows what you're doing. Very conversational and incredibly useful, to the point where things that used to cost $100,000 to get a consultant to do something now is free. Or pennies, it's not a lot of money. And so I realized, I'm like, we're using, it's like the equivalent in the 80s when there were companies that were just use typewriters because they were like, yeah, computers are just more complicated typewriters. Right. And so everybody in the steno pool, they just use the typewriters, and and it's like, and that's okay. But if you refused to switch, and as a business, if you weren't deciding like, hey, we need to get in this computer bandwagon and start bringing in these PCs, and stop doing word processors, which was the initial iteration of that. Was it went from a physical typewriter, sort of mechanical typewriter, to a word processing unit, to eventually become a computer. If you just stuck with word processor and you didn't level up to computer, you got run over because the game was over for you and you didn't realize it. And so I think for me, it was having that heart to heart soul moment. And I mean soul, like in my being, something was realized where I said, we cannot do this the old way anymore. Like I'm using a typewriter, and I'm realizing now I'm using a typewriter because we weren't using AI properly. And then it was game on. Okay, Now I have this computer on my desk. I go back to the 80s example. Now I got a computer on my desk. How do I get the most out of it? Yes, I want to be able to type a bunch of stuff. What else can I do with this thing called a computer? Right. And so then it became game on. What else can I do? Bringing it to today's age. What else can I do with AI? How can I integrate this so it is the new computer? And I'm not just sitting here going, oh, it's a nice tool to use occasionally. It's like in the way that a computer is like nice to use occasionally, you have to use it for everything, right? And AI should be used for everything, and it can be used for everything, and it's so freaking good at it. If you learn how to work with it. So for me, it was game over. Old tools, old ways of doing things. You don't figure out how to transition. You just stop. Certain things just stop. The behaviors stop, and you start new behaviors. There is no transition. There's just you stop doing it the old way, you start doing it the new way, and you put that. There's a line in the sand, between those. Like there's a very different between level 1 and level 2. There's a line. If you're level 1, if you're level 2. And so I think if you're using any old tools at all, it's game over already. So then you start using the new ones. The other thing that was game over, game on was realizing, oh, I've been using AI trying to teach it how to do everything that I needed it to do. And that was game over thinking. I was using AI in the old way of thinking, which is that I thought I needed to tell it how to, like, you are a copywriter and you need to do this. Blah, blah, blah. You don't have to do any of that if you really learn how to interact with it. So the game on was like, okay, I need to stop worrying about the how steps and start just focusing on the results that I want and really getting clear and understanding what are the results that I'm asking of it. And when I did that, that's when it was just like, oof, like this thing just lit up and gave us incredibly useful stuff quick, much faster than I would have imagined. And I wasn't going back and forth a million ways trying to get something that basically just sounded like AI anyway. I was getting something that's causing sales, it's moving needles, it's changing data, like it's changing, meaning the conversion rates are going up, stuff like that. Like it's amazing. And that's game on when you're like, okay, I'm going to use this in a completely different way, which is kind of that results style thinking. So there's my little tirade on the background of game over, game on.
I love it. And it's so true with everything. You got me thinking a little bit too, and that is like it's really, to me, it's all about the strategies. How do you embrace this? What is your game on? Like what is that game that you think you can play, and how do you get to that point, and how do you make things better? And I don't, rather than using all of our own analogies from our own business, this one I want to talk about travel, which is something that's near and dear to me. My wife works in travel. She's a travel designer. She does like high-end itineraries. And then I showed her Chat GPT, and she just started saying, like, come up with an itinerary for like a treasure map for things you can do in the city of London. And Chat GPT gave her like, start here, walk here, go do this, come. And it was like a 10-step treasure map for a thing to do when you're visiting London. And it's like, it would have taken forever to do that. Now she can just do it. And so that the game over of like having to do that research at that level it's like, you don't need to do that. So you can't get paid to do research anymore. Like a research person can get paid to do it, but to turn that research into a product that somebody wants, yeah. Like what what you can do is you can use design and you can create that treasure map. You can actually create a map of London and put it on there, and you can sell it. You can go have your own little Etsy store selling that thing, and you can do, there's all kinds of things you can do where it's like you open up a new game, because before the game was just getting the work done and you charge for your work. Now you're charging for the result. And this is where your attitude's changed a lot, and it's really trickled through the organization. It's just like, what's the result? Work backwards, and then figuring out game on is ultimately getting the result. Maybe that's the next wave, the next, like we talk about information economy. Maybe it's a results economy. Maybe that's what we are. Episode 100, we talked about an information economy, and then there's a next thing coming. Maybe that's what it is. It's a results economy. It's a answer economy or something like that. Although that's really the result. That's the result. You get answers, but it's, it might be something else that's around that. But how are we getting compensated? It's by being exceptional. Like you have to be exceptional. And this also goes back to episode 100 where we ended, is that everybody's going to be a company of one potentially. Like everything will be like, the employment world is just going to change so much where, being an employee and waiting on somebody is just a different thing. It's going to be, it's going to have a different meaning. So maybe it is that everything is independent. And then it's like, what can I do to be exceptional? What can I do to put something out there? And that's like, I don't know. I mean, to me, it's always like, what does this enable? And then how do I get to the point where I enable it, where I can make money before that gets stamped out or before it gets replaced? Because that is something that I'm not sure that I have an answer to yet, Mercer, and that is, what is next? What happens when you take a thing that used to be research, and that was the work product, was putting your stamp on research and putting your stamp on measurement or whatever that was. What happens when you just give them the answer? Can you still charge a premium for that? What if cheap knockoffs create the answers that look almost the same? Because that's going to happen. What happens when things go down in price? How do you stay premium? I do think that this is not just an AI thing, though. This is not just a game over game on, but like, there's two types of businesses. There's the Walmarts and there's the LVMH. Right? Walmart is, let's get the margins down as low as we can. Costco, stuff like that. They make a bunch of money by Amazon by giving the lowest price. And there's luxury. Like a Birkin bag is going to be even more valuable in this new economy. It actually might be, you could use a Birkin bag to like buy a nation. Like that's how these things are going to be. So like, that's going to be really worth a lot. Craftsmanship, that high value thing. So I just don't know yet. Like, what is the game? What is the game on? Is it that physical things take higher precedence? I think that might be part of it. Is it that we have more time, that all we do is make physical things? I said in episode 100, like, I'm really interested in this idea of sustenance, like sustenance farming happening, or farm to table happening in every single town. When
Mhm.
there's robots, when there's greenhouse technology, when there's clean, cheap energy, the Dutch do this right now. They have the most productive farms in the world. Like, they have like these vertical farms that produce so much per acre, and it's completely sustainable. It's organic. It's everything. Is that what's going to be? Because I do think that might be what this enables. Is like, okay, so we all live in our area. We have like a lot fewer cars, a lot less pollution, and we all eat just delicious food. We're not like super overweight. We have more time to exercise. We have, more time to do these things. If we get a jacket, it's going to be the best jacket that's ever been made, because we only need one for the rest of our lives. Like, these are the things that I'm excited about as a positive side, is that we basically we use this next to zero need for information. Like, to sit at your computer for 40 hours is insane. Like, why would you do that? And if it's all on mobile and it's all like, goes with you, can we just have that running in the background, where our job is like 1 hour a week, but it's still as productive as it would have been, 200, 300 hours. And then we use the rest of our time to go back to our other world, the physical world. And that's where all the effort goes into the reinvestment. Because honestly, that would be pretty great, wouldn't it? Like, the
Yeah.
richest Europe ever. Like, it's like Europe without like medieval Europe without the wars, famine, all these things, with all the different sustenance things solved. Like, that's a cool game on situation. I don't want to go too speculative, although I have just been right there. But like that's all I can think about. Like, game on to me is like, what is my life like 10, 20 years from now? When you think about game on, I know you gave some examples, but what do you think about? Like, is it like, do you think about, from a work perspective, do you think about like what this enables? What's on your mind?
I think so. Let's go real esoteric and then drill down into more like, okay, how do we, rubber meets the road? What do I do with this today? So esoterically, I think yes, society is going to change rapidly, and I'm thinking 3 to 5 years out, um, to start seeing some of these just unbelievable changes in society that will happen mind blowingly fast. Um, but for the positive, like there'll be a lot of volatility and there'll be a lot of, initially I think some fear, which I get when you're 3 years out. But I think as we get closer and closer, everyone's going to start running toward it and be like, oh my God, this thing's amazing. Let's make this thing happen. And that kind of leads to like your, the farm to table stuff, and you've got robots growing. That stuff's all going to happen, right? Like I don't know about the luxury things. I'd be kind of curious to see how brands will handle that. But when everything can be printed or made with technology, what's the point of luxury when I can just get luxury and then just order it and then have it pop in my printer? Like that stuff like that will start happening. So I think there's the short answer there is it will just be massive abundance. I don't see anything other than that. I really don't. Which is why I'm so excited. I don't have fear over this. Whereas a couple years ago, it was like, all right, well, how's everyone going to make money, and how's everyone going to pay for all this stuff? And it's like, at the end of the day, AI is going to be incredibly cheap, practically free, if not free. Everybody will have access to it, which means there will be somebody in the Sahara Desert that will have access to try to figure out the cure for cancer because they just had the question, and they might not even know how to read English, but they'll be able to get something done in their native language or tongue or whatever it is. They might be illiterate, maybe they don't know how to read, but they can talk. And that's what AI will be able to do. It will open up so much agency to so many more humans that the creative energy that is about to be unleashed is the next enlightenment. Going back to like you're talking about the dark ages, right? And it's like the age of enlightenment came in and, it sort of changed all that. And I think that's esoterically where I see it going. Now, how does this actually make sense in like today's world? Because that's where I try to want to live is the game on mentality or the game over game on mentality is more like if you're thinking about telling AI how to do stuff, like you need to teach it how to do things, that's game over thinking. Game on thinking is just tell the result you want. It will figure it out. And there's lots of different ways you can do that. I think game over thinking is when I go and I think to myself, oh, I got to do this. Let's bring it back to marketing. I got to do this sales page, right? Or let's bring it to a different business that's digital, which I think is in severe trouble right now, which is McKinsey. I'd be freaking out if I was McKinsey right now because I'm overloaded with a ton of MBAs that don't know anything about anything anyway, because colleges stopped teaching a long time ago. And so now you've got all these MBAs that are basically doing these research reports that are just copy and pasted slide decks anyway, which now both OpenAI and Google do. So that's free, right? It doesn't cost anything. It's $20 a month, right? So it's not a lot is the point. And is it as good as a McKinsey report? It's all based on how we ask the question. And the answer is yes, if you ask the right question. It's no if you just say, oh, make me a report like McKinsey. It's going to look like a high school kid did it. But you can get incredible results from these deep research tools that are out there. So what's McKinsey going to do? That used to be effort to do all of this research, to come up with all of these ideas, to come up with all of these different things that you needed to be able to make all these different choices and decisions. And you used to have to outsource and hire a firm like McKinsey to go off and do all of that. Now you don't have to do that. Now AI does all of that. So it's effortless, right? Game over when you think about, okay, how much effort do I got to put into this? That's the wrong question. That's game over thinking. It's not, and that's what I mean by game over thinking. Some questions just should not be asked anymore. There are no answers anymore. You can't, they are not useful on the next level. And that's why I always think about it like a video game, because there are certain things you do on level 1 of the video game that you cannot do on level 2 because they were just there for level 1. They're not useful on level 2. Right? That magic key or the magic sword or whatever the thing is you picked up on your first journey in level 1 is irrelevant for level 2. Everything in level 2 can beat that, or it doesn't matter for level 2. You need to let go of the old stuff and allow the new stuff. So let go of, I need to put effort into stuff. You don't. AI needs to put the effort into it. You just need to put into this effortless result thinking, like what is the result that I want? And that is a little more effortless. It doesn't feel like effort to do that. If you're putting on, okay, I need to think about this for a while, that's already game over thinking. Why are you doing any thinking at all? You should just be acting and changing things. So how do you get that to happen? Well, you go AI. AI does the thinking, and that way you can just take action. That's what you should be spending your time doing, is just action. So game on thinking is action, 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 not I need to think about what to do. Why are you doing any thinking at all? AI knows everything about everything, everywhere, all at once, all the time, and you're ignoring it. That's game over. Like stop playing that level. I think the idea of I have a bunch of questions is also game over thinking. You should have no questions because you can get every answer you can from AI. You just have to figure out how to phrase the answer, ask for the answer, right? Which is not necessarily asking AI a question. It's determining the result you want from AI. How do you figure out how to get that answer from AI? So all this game over thinking is how to do stuff, putting in effort. I got to think about it. I got to think about all these different questions and all this mental anguish, especially the mental anguish right now. Eventually it'll be physical, when the bots and robots get produced. But initially it's going to be all the mental stuff that affects a lot of white collar workers, all the mental stuff that we go through. All of that does not have to be there. We just needed the decision to say, cool, I don't have to do it like this anymore. I need to do it like this. And then that literally goes away. Like the next minute it goes away. And that's where you get to the game on thinking, where you're focused on the results. It's effortless. You're taking action all the time and you're just working with answers. So you've got this momentum that's going on. You don't feel stuck or like you're spinning in circles as much.
Wow. Yeah, so that's really interesting. I'm hearing a lot of, I think we're both on the same page. Is that it's going to be just such a different world. I have a few things that I was thinking. One thing you said was ultimately build a brand. You didn't necessarily say that, but I was thinking as you were talking, it's like one of the things we could, like McKinsey, like they do these reports. You know why you'd buy a McKinsey over somebody else's? Because you built a brand. Why
Because it
you'd
says
buy,
McKinsey. Yeah, I hired
yeah,
McKinsey.
But they
Yeah.
stand for something. That's the thing, is like they stand for something, and not everybody values that. Not everybody values that a company stands for something. But the top 1%, the number one thing is going to be like so far distance from average things. There'll be a lot more winners and losers, like definitively. Like
Yeah.
if you're not the number one thing, or if you're not in the top, then you're not going to be there. And that, like I mentioned, luxury brands, the Four Seasons hotels. I'm still like Four Seasons hotels. I would buy all their stock if it. I don't even know if it's a publicly traded company or not, but that's where people are going to want to stay. Like really nice places are people are going to want to stay. Average places are going to sort of go by the wayside. You either need to be exceptional or a commodity, right? You either go for volume or exception, and that's there's going to be even more polarization in this world, which like that's how the world always was. I compared to medieval Europe earlier. That's how the world has always been. Is there's been like extremely rich and
Mhm.
extremely not poor necessarily, because I don't the definition of poor should hopefully rise. The bar should go up with this, because there's just so much more abundance in
Yeah.
general. But
Yeah.
there's like, on the lower end of comfort, like everything will be
Yeah.
comfortable, or it should be.
It's like
But
gas. There's
then,
premium and there's regular.
yeah,
You
exactly. Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, there's not like, there's not like remedial, regular, premium, or
Right.
advanced,
Right.
Yeah. I mean, and I would love to see the remedial stamped out, and there's no reason why it couldn't happen
Yep.
in with the abundance that's about to take place.
Yep.
But also, the exceptional, the premium, it will be brands. It will be things like community, like where people have a place to gather and they have a place to talk about things, and doing that, whether, whatever the community ends up being. And those are the things you can think about. So I was thinking, like, what can you do today? Like getting into tactics. What can you do for
Hmm.
game on today? And what can you do for game on tomorrow? And then, how do you get this into the point where you're dreaming about it and that's all you're thinking about, that this is what we're going to be doing? So to me, today you can start working on a brand. You can start thinking about where you want to be, skating to where the puck is going to be, and thinking about, like, at the end, 10 years from now, I'll be glad that I made that decision. Start thinking about that. Dream about it. Think about it. So, like for Mercer and I, 10 years from now, I'll be pretty happy that I said that Profit School became a company that ushered people into this era. That prepared people for this thing and helped flatten that early adopter curve. So it's not just the early adopters that get to win on this thing, it's everybody. That would be something that I would, if 10 years from now, I'd feel pretty good about that, right?
Mm.
That I had that happen because of what we think it's going to do. We have a positive outlook of the impact of AI in the world. Now, if you have a negative outlook, I guess your way to activate that would be to, like, be like, oh, it's all going to be bad. Let's go and let's prevent this from happening. That's not the attitude that we have, that I have. I don't think you have it either, that we're going to do it. But what can you do tomorrow? It's to see that through to completion. So if you have this idea of what you want to do, it's to make it so that that's your reality. To put as much effort into that as you might have put into building your career, in a career that is in jeopardy. Put as much effort into that and thought into that as when you started your business the first time. Put as much effort into that as when you got excited about something, when you first poured into a video game, when you first poured into something, when you first learned how to bake during the pandemic, and you were obsessed with your sourdough starter, and then you lost that momentum. It's like create momentum, I think, is what you can do today and tomorrow. Today is create a dream. Tomorrow is create momentum, and then just to work that momentum. That's what I think you can do. That's the only thing you can do, is start to build towards the momentum of where you think this is going to be. As it's pretty much the writing is on the wall. This is what's going to happen, at least, and we're seeing it because we're in it, and we're seeing how fast this is developing, and we're trying to extrapolate that to 10 years from now.
Hmm.
We don't know what 10 years from now is going to look like, but there's a pretty high chance that it's going to be something where there's abundance. The information economy is like an agrarian economy. It's 1% of the population that can do that. 99% of the population goes to something else, has most likely will have to do with physical, which is one of the things, and how we live in that world and how we support that. So Mercer, what do you think, does that make sense to you, like tactically, like what can you do today, what can you do tomorrow, where do you think this is going to go, or do
I
you not, I
I'm
know you're not even thinking that way yet?
I'm going to challenge you,
Sure.
because I think we just talked about how game over, right? Was like, if you're doing all the thinking and you're putting in an effort, and I added create to that because you were mentioning that word too. That's all game over thinking for me. So I would not suggest that. What I would suggest is if you feel like you have to put any effort at all into something, that's already the point. You don't have to believe that. right? And so you go, okay, I don't need to put effort into anything, and I'm going to give a very tactical challenge on my way out here, so people can you try this thing out. So go into whatever your AI tool is of choice, any of them, doesn't matter. Type in the thing you think you should be thinking about. Like Jeff was just mentioning, oh, you got to think about blah, blah, blah. So I would suggest, Jeff, you do this. And you go into it and you go in the AI and you say, okay, here's all the things I'm thinking about. I want to try to get this done and 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 this done. Take all of that, and that's kind of, the traditional prompt, but you don't actually hit enter. You don't send it into the AI. You take all of that and sort of cut it out, right? So you copy it, make a copy of it. And then you go back and blow all that out of the prompt and you start the prompt over. And this time you tell AI, please analyze the following prompt. Rate until you fully understand the intended desired result. And then let's just keep it simple. So just say, analyze this following prompt until you understand the intended result and explain to me in as much detail what the intended result is and anticipate why I want this result. Then you paste in the gibberish you typed in before about what all the stuff you got to think about. What AI will do is it will say, okay, it looks like you're trying to do this, this, and this, and I can help you this, this, and this. I think you're trying to do it because you're trying to do this, this, and this. And once it understands that, and you go, yes, oh my gosh, that's exactly it. It's understood the result you want, but you still haven't asked it to provide the result. It just understands the result you want. Then what you do, so step one is you kind of put out whatever you think the prompt should be in your worst like human way of doing it. You don't need to worry about what the prompt is. I cannot emphasize this enough. It's no effort at all. You just gibberish it out, like vomit it out, whatever the words are. It doesn't matter. You can misspell them. You can use the wrong words. You can use bad grammar. None of this matters. Get it out, copy it out. Start the sentence over with, please analyze this for the intended result, and then explain your reasoning is what it is and anticipate why I needed that. Then you paste that same gibberish back in. It'll analyze it. It will decipher what it is. It confirms with you, yeah, I've got the result, and this is why I think you're asking for this. And if that's true, then awesome. And if not, then you can correct it. But if it's true, then the step 3, right? So first step is gibberish, second, or you get it out. Second step is have AI process it for you so it understands the result you're trying to get. Third step is you go, great, please show me the prompt that I should actually use to get this desired result. And then AI will write the prompt for you in the way that AI needs the prompt written so it can give you the result, because you're never going to worry about how to do that. You never, ever need to know how to prompt ever. AI knows how to prompt. So you don't have to think about it. There is literally no effort. There is literally no thinking. There is literally no ability. You don't have to create anything. AI will do it all, but you have to let go of effort and thinking and creation as a thing you have to do. It's not that anymore. It's just we have to receive. We just have to allow things to come in. We have to allow effortless action to happen. And that's a decision, and that's the game on moment. That is a very subtle but completely opposite way of looking at the world. But it's so razor thin that it's why I think I'm glad that you went through and described, like right after I was like, game over, is thinking about stuff and putting in effort. And you were like, and okay, here's what everybody should do. Start thinking about stuff and putting in effort. That's what I mean by it's so razor thin that it's still game on thinking. When you're thinking you have to do that, you don't. AI does. And AI doesn't care because there's unlimited capability and limited capacity, right? Or maybe not unlimited capability, but for certain infinite capabilities, it'll continue to grow and expand every day. So that's where I would leave it is to challenge you and to challenge other people to start doing that, get wildly different results, and just tell AI will tell you what to do if we learn how to do that. And that simple technique, again, first step, getting out whatever your prompt is, don't worry about it. Just get out whatever thing you're looking for. Second step, ask AI to analyze that and confirm what the result is that you're trying to get, and then explain why the reasoning so it understands the reason behind the reason. That's important. And then once it's like, yeah, I totally get it, then you're like, cool, you write the prompt. You tell me how to do this. And what I like to do is I will say, tell me, write the prompt, but this time do it in a way that's going to get me better than the intended result. In other words, you get me to the place that you think I actually want to get to, but I don't know how to communicate to you. And then AI gives me that prompt. I literally I don't even read it. Copy and paste it into a new chat. That's the final step. And it just delivers. It's amazing how simple this is, but you can't make it simple unless you're willing to accept it's simple and it doesn't require effort. And that's what I think stops people, because they think it's effort. They think they need to do stuff. They think they have to make something happen, and you really don't. You just need to participate, and there's nothing that's easier than that. So that's kind of, my little final thought on it. I'll throw it back to you, and then I'll take us home. But anything just on that?
Yeah. We're going to need another episode on it because
I love it.
I disagree with your disagreement. I don't think brands are built I don't think an AI can build a brand. I think it can tell you the steps. I think AI is a co-pilot, like we were talking about before. So I think we're both saying something very similar. It's just how we're getting into how steps, which I think is ultimately like, do we even need how steps anymore? So I think we can do an episode on this just to be like, just to unpack this a little bit more, because I really like this line of thinking in this direction we're going in. So let's just leave it on the table and say, like, I want to unpack this a little bit more on a full episode.
I dig it. Let's do it on our next episode.
Let's do it.
I think this
I'm
would be
already
great,
making the
especially
change.
with AI right now. AI
Yeah,
automation, where things are going, the rules are changing so fast, and the opportunities are so much there. And if we can get the mindset shift, which is all this really takes, out there, the more we can talk about that, the more we can come up with some real life examples of some things people can try, would be super cool.
love
So
it.
I look forward to that. And with that, this is going to wrap up this Business Unfiltered conversation. Thanks again for listening to the Profit School podcast. Share what you've learned, especially this stuff. Try out that technique I just talked about. Talk to others, find out how they're doing it. See if they see there's a game over, game on moment. Because if they're not, they're in game over thinking. I promise you, they can't see it yet. Because everybody that I've talked to that has flipped into this different way of doing things has a very different experience with AI when they do. So I would definitely encourage you to do that. And of course, check us out over at profitschool.com. We are doing more and more AI training every day over there. Be sure to join that community, rate and review on your favorite podcast platform, and we will see you on the next episode.
In summary, embracing the game over, game on mentality requires a shift in mindset and a willingness to embrace new tools and strategies. By understanding the potential of AI, focusing on results, and letting go of the old ways of thinking, you can unlock unprecedented levels of productivity and success. Thanks for watching, and if you have any experiences or tips for navigating the game over, game on transition, please leave them in the comments below. And if you want to learn more about leveraging AI in your business, be sure to check out our next video where we'll dive deeper into the world of business optimization. And if you want to learn more about leveraging AI in your business, be sure to check out our Gemini workshop over at profitschool.com/Gemini, where we dive deep into the world of business optimization. Remember to share the podcast and talk about what you've learned with others to integrate this thinking into your own business. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to this channel on YouTube, as well as the podcast on your favorite podcasting platform.